So, when I was a kid, I didn't learn how to write. I wasn't illiterate. I could read and I knew how to spell and I could put words down on paper when I needed to, but I couldn't put my ideas onto paper. And the funny thing about it is that it was paper that was actually the reason for that. There's something about a piece of paper that is just this perfect, clean object. And I knew from experience that anything that I was going to do was just going to fuck that up. I was going to make it ugly. And that really bothered me in some way that I didn't understand. And I would work in pencil so I could erase things, but erasers get rid of the word and or the misspelled thing, but it leaves a scar. And ultimately, the scars would grab my focus and I wouldn't be able to think about what it was that I was trying to write. And it made me feel really awkward and stupid and frustrated. And eventually I found it was just easier to give up and just not try at all. Because of that, I didn't do well in school because I didn't do most of the work. I wasn't stupid, so I passed, also because I was a bit of a pain in the ass and most teachers didn't want to put up with me for 2 years in a row. But I just kind of went through school that way, just kind of doing enough. And until I got to high school. High school was really the first time any teachers gave me the opportunity to truly fail, because they didn't need to pass me to get rid of me. They could just get rid of me. And they did, and it's not their fault. I wasn't doing the work. I had a lot of really bad habits. The good thing about high school for me was that I went to an art school, and in the art school, when I wasn't doing the work I was supposed to be doing in class, I was in the theater. I was hanging lights, and I was setting up sound systems, and I was building sets. So when I finally flunked out, I had a skill, and that skill coincided with the boom in the Toronto film industry, and I managed to build a career for myself, even though I had no education. And that's been great. I've been doing that for 20 years now. I still am, and it's a wonderful career. About 8 years ago, I was working on a movie, and I was sitting around after work one night talking to one of our production managers, and he was just telling me this idea that he had, this character that he'd come up with for like a kid's animated TV series. And it was a really cool character idea. And we were just sort of spitballing ideas back and forth, and that just kind of took off and it snowballed. And 2 hours later, we found ourselves saying, oh, hang on, we gotta go home. It's getting late. But we were excited, we were jazzed about this idea. And he said, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna write up some stuff based on what we've talked about. And he came in the next day with a basic outline for a TV series. I sat down that night, was reading it on my computer. We made a couple of corrections of some spelling mistakes that he'd made. Every once in a while, there'd be a sentence that just didn't feel right to me, so I would put it into words that felt easier for my brain to comprehend. And then I sent it back to him, and the next day we would discuss it. And that kind of became our process. He would write something, I would edit it, we would discuss it, and then he would write something, I would edit it, and he would discuss it. And that just kind of continued for a couple of months, actually. But eventually we had this character that I loved, I still love. It's a great character. He was a villain, and he was like this Zen Buddhist villain, which was a great concept, but it didn't work conceptually, because why would somebody who's got this Zen nature be an antagonist in the show? It just doesn't make any sense. And so I was torn, because I loved this character, but I didn't want to get rid of him, and I kind of knew we had to. It was bothering me. I knew from a narrative sense it didn't work. And in this last ditch effort, I sat in front of my computer and I wrote his backstory. I figured, hey, let me just try to at least explain why he is the way that he is. And the ideas just came out of me, threw it into my keyboard, onto the screen, and it wasn't a problem at all because there was no paper. It didn't matter. And when I read it, it was terrible, but I had been editing for the last couple of months, so I just went over it again and made it better and corrected everything. And when I was done after like 4 revisions, I felt good about it. And I sent it to my partner, and the next day he looked at it, and he looked at me and he said, if you're gonna write like this, you need to do some of the writing too, you know. Because it was really good, and he really liked it. So we started sharing the writing, and I discovered that I enjoyed writing dialogue, and I wasn't worried about it because I didn't have this handicap that had been bothering me for so long. After a couple of months, we went to our boss because we really liked what we had, and we pitched it to him. We said, hey, we've got this idea for a show. And he said, I can't greenlight anything. I don't have the authority for that, but next week, the executives from the States are coming up, and one of them is the executive in charge of creative development, and I'm gonna get you an hour and you're gonna pitch it to him. Which was weird, because we hadn't sort of expected anything like that, and we didn't know what to do, so we quickly, we could like put together this professional looking package and got friends in the art department to do some concept art for us. And we went into this room with this guy whose job it is to make TV shows happen and movies and stuff, and we pitched it for him and he liked it. And he assigned a producer, and we kept doing what we were doing before, but now we would have a conference call every 2 weeks and discuss it with them, and they would help us develop the idea better and make it fit in with what they needed. And it was like this incredible thing. Eventually, in the true Hollywood ending, not the true Hollywood storytelling ending, but in the true Hollywood ending, the guy who liked our idea got a different job, moved to another company, and the whole thing just evaporated. That's a true Hollywood story. And it went away. We knew that the producer didn't like our idea, so when he left, we knew that she wasn't going to continue it. But I didn't care anymore, because in the space of like 6 months, I'd gone from thinking that I couldn't write to developing a TV show with a company that like is worth $1 billion. Just because somebody had actually said, no, hey, this is good, and I didn't have the same technological problems that I used to have, and because of that, I still write today, and I love it, and I enjoy it, and sometimes I even do it on paper. Because when I look at it now, I don't see the scars. I just see the ideas, and if I don't like the way they come out, I just know I'll fix it in the next draft. Thanks.